Funky Little Theater Company presents Love Letters, a play by A.R. Gurney, directed by Chris Medina. It'll be at the Palmer Lake Town Hall, February 14th through the 16th. And is there more than two actors in this?
Just the two actors.
Just you two guys. Aaron Howard and Patrick Rogers. Welcome.
Welcome.
Thank you.
I've heard a bit about Love Letters, and it sounds like a really interesting premise, and all kinds of cool stuff can happen. Who wants to tell me about it?
Patrick, you start?
You're up.
Sure. It's a performance of two actors reading the letters that two people have written to each other over the course of 50 years. And so it starts when they are in elementary school, and so it's quite innocent. And they go through a lot of changes, and they affect each other greatly, but they rarely really cross paths. And it's sweet, but it's quite bittersweet at times as well. So it's really, really one of the best written plays I've ever read. And what's wonderful about it is almost anybody can do it. This particular play, and it's designed to where you could do it with no rehearsal whatsoever, because it's just reading these letters that each other has written to each other.
Well, that's cool. The improvisational element, and no two plays are the same, essentially.
Well, I'm not sure that it would be improvisational at all. In fact, it's quite particular. The playwright was quite particular about, there's going to be no variation from this script and these letters.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
In fact, he was very kind of adamant about don't act. Just read the letters, because I'm actually reading my letters and she's reading hers.
Okay.
It kind of reminds me of the old-time radio shows, because even though we're reading it, you still have to put a lot of emotion into it, make it interesting. We don't even look at each other. So we're kind of turned away from each other. There's no staging. We just sit in our chairs. So if we don't make it interesting, then people will be very bored. But it's so well written. And it took me by surprise when I first read it, because
it really did.
Kind of thought it'd be corny, kind of, love letters, corny.
Yeah,
but
or sappy, saccharine, sweet, kind of thing. And it's actually quite the opposite. And because of so much of the misconnections, and, my character goes one way and she goes the other as far as the quality and the choices we make in our lives.
Yeah. Well, Aaron, tell me about your character. What's her name?
Her name is Melissa. And she is rebellious, artistic. So she just kind of says whatever pops into her head. And that's how she delivers the letters to him. It's like she just says it like it is.
Very cool.
And he's kind of the opposite, right?
Well, the yin and the yang? Okay.
It is.
What's your character's name, Patrick?
Andrew Makepeace Ladd III. And believe it or not, her family is richer than mine, but we both come from WASPy sort of background. And it starts in 1937 when we were in second grade. So we did a performance for an assisted living. And so those people there had commented afterwards how they were taken back to, World War II and those sort of things. But anyway, my character is very straight-laced, does what he's told to do, and she keeps trying to pull him out of his shell.
Okay. Now, you say that you really don't meet that often in person. It's all the letters.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
Why are you guys separated, can you say?
Just
different lives, different marriages, things like that?
Boarding schools.
Okay.
Colleges.
And also, it's tenuous on what our relationship really is, because there are times, of course, we see each other. We went to school together, but by the time we go to college, it's meet each other here, meet each other there. And a lot of those times we've met were not successful.
Okay.
So the romance part of it was tenuous, like I said.
All right. Makes me think of, and we mentioned this before I started recording, Same Time Next Year. That's a movie I haven't seen probably since I was a teenager, but Alan Alda and Ellen Burstyn. It's kind of a variant, I think, of this. They meet at this place. They sneak away from their spouses and meet at this place every year, same time, over a period of maybe 30 years, 40 years. And they evolve, They evolve from one person to another, as we all hopefully do in our lives.
Right.
So what would you like people to take away from this play?
Well, there's a line that Andrew says about how he loves to write letters. And Melissa really isn't into writing letters that much, but he loves it. but he says something about how he puts a part of himself into the letters and that it's something that I or whoever he's writing to can pick up and read anytime, and get a glimpse of him anytime they want, now, in the future, And I thought that was very important to what letter writing was all about before.
Yeah.
And of course, if you talk to anybody, our grandparents or whatever, it was an art. And not only what they said and how they communicated, but how they wrote. They took time to make their letter writing, the handwriting, just beautiful. And I don't think that we see that very often anymore.
That's a lost thing. I realize this. A word that you don't hear anymore is correspondence. You got the right paper. Sometimes you have stationery that looks cool.
Right.
You got maybe a fountain pen or whatever. And of course, stamps. You can have a really good-looking stamp to accentuate the letter that you're sending, depending on who it's to.
Right.
So, all right, I'll pop out of my memories of the past here. Patrick, you want to say something?
Yeah, that just actually reminds me that an old flame of mine showed me letters that I had written to her from 30 years ago.
Okay.
She had some of the ones, you could still smell perfume on them, and you can't do that with an email. And
right.
Yeah.
But, what I think about is one of my letters to her is there's a number of Christmas letters about our family.
Okay.
My character just keeps increasing his stature in life and gets more and more successful. But one of the letters that he sends to her is, of course, very stock, and it drives her nuts that I'm not talking about anything about how great our lives are, me and my wife and my dog and all this. And she calls me out on it, which she does a number of times. And then I had to send her a real letter, my character did, where the truth comes out. So she lives probably not successfully, but with truth. Yeah. Whereas my life is, Andrew's life is quite a bit much more about presentation.
Okay.
The good grades and the good school and stuff.
Sounds very interesting. Well, looking forward to this, and it's coming up February 14th through 16th very soon. Love Letters, played by A.R. Gurney, directed by Chris Medina. It'll be part of the series from Funky Little Theater Company, funkylittletheater.org to find out more. And this is in Palmer Lake at Palmer Lake Town Hall. And speaking to Aaron Howard and Patrick Rogers. Thank you both.
Thank you for having us.
It's a pleasure to be here.